Welcome everyone to the Crypto Vakil show. Today we are joined by technology and blockchain entrepreneur Vinod Manoharan. He is currently in Ukraine. He is joining us from Ukraine. Vinod is the founder and CEO of JAX.Network, a newly launched cryptocurrency. And before this, he has been involved in many IT services and gaming projects. He was the founder of Kilo 365, a popular online poker site in India, and Deccan Rummy, a popular online rummy site in India. But for the last 3 years, he has been focusing on blockchain and crypto. And just a day ago, he announced the news of the launch of JAX.Network, JXN, JAX coins on the MainNet. And blockchain and crypto is going to be uh, his main focus in the years to come. Uh, so welcome, Vinod. Welcome to the Crypto Vakil show.
Thank you so much, Jay, for inviting me. Thank you.
To begin with, can you explain to our viewers what, in layman terms, so that everyone can understand what JaxNet is about and what did you just start one day ago?
Okay, so JaxNet is a protocol. It's a fully decentralized protocol that's built on top of the Bitcoin protocol, which is used to measure energy in a distributed network. So what you achieve out of it is that you can measure energy in a distributed network. And what you can do with that now is that it's an experiment to move humanity towards an energy standard monetary system. Back in the days, you had the gold standard monetary system. People used to go to banks, deposit gold, and they used to get currency in return. With JaxNet protocol, it's more like you generate energy in a decentralized network. You generate energy tokens, to be precise, and then you can deposit them into a DeFi bank and get localized currency in return. And we argue that this would be a much better system of managing the technology of money itself than an existing, fractional reserve banking system. That's what this technology and project is all about. So we provide the core infrastructure for this transformation.
And how is it going to be different from the existing cryptocurrencies? Are there no other existing cryptocurrencies using this energy standard?
Yeah, so actually, that's a good question because there are two types of consensus systems. For that, you have to talk about consensus itself. There's Bitcoin-based proof of work consensus, which is mined, and mining essentially means expending energy. And there is proof of stake consensus, where it's more like a private company, wherein some key holders, they hold some stake and they call the shots, including what happens in the protocol. Yes, Bitcoin is underwritten by energy, the creation of Bitcoins to an extent, but the reward of Bitcoins is not based on energy. For example, 10 years back, you could spend $100 into mining Bitcoins and you would get 50 Bitcoins. Today, you can spend, let's say, $300,000 into Bitcoin mining and you'll get 6 Bitcoins out of it. So although they use energy to secure the network, they don't really reward people based on the energy they spend. And this is a significant difference. Nobody has done it. Actually, one project called Temilio, they tried to do that. I think they were after us, but we got to know about them recently. And there's not a lot of projects out there that are trying to provide the infrastructure for an energy standard monetary system.
Interesting. Since we are focused on India, wanted to know more about your India plans. And you've mentioned in your website also, I think, about launching an India pegged stable coin and stable coins of other currencies as well.
Right.
So what are your plans for specifically for India going forward? Are you looking to get listed on Indian exchanges?
Right. So I think we will work towards getting listed on Indian exchanges later this month, or if possible, for sure, maybe in a few months from now. And we are going to launch an Indian stablecoin, which is, kind of soft pegged to the Indian rupee with proof of reserves in our decentralized stablecoins. Now, that's something where we have been seeking extensive legal opinions, and we are going to be venturing into this space. You're right about that.
You were born and raised in India, but right now you're not in India. Your company is not in India, and we at Crypto Vakil talk a lot about policy and regulations and stuff like that, right? So wanted to know from you what is the policy and regulations and reaction of the government and policymakers in, let's say, Ukraine or Dubai, and how different is it from what you've seen in India?
Okay, just a small correction. By the way, I'm going to be based out of Bangalore for the next X amount of years because we have our services and tech people in there. And yes, we do have our R&D in Ukraine, and we have our own marketing in Dubai. But mainly, I'm going to be based out of India. Just a small correction there.
Right.
Now, about the policy, Ukraine has been very open about cryptos because they're a small country. The population, Ukraine is like half the size of my state in India, maybe.
Tamil Nadu,
And, yeah, and it's just about half actually, including the economy. So for them, it's much more easier to have an open mind and try things out. And Dubai, obviously, it's like a very pro-capitalist, nation, and they are kind of for them it's like an easy switch to cryptos, and they're actually aggressively promoting cryptos. India, on the other hand, it's like that's a lot of poor people, and the existing tax system needs to be very precise. And I definitely see a challenge there, but I think eventually India, with the right taxation policies, would fit into this overall structure. Because I come from a technical background, it's impossible to ban these technologies. It's like cryptocurrency is like a kilogram. It's actually a unit of value. So how can you ban somebody from measuring things using the kilogram? Because it's just a protocol that if everybody follows, everything is clearly accounted, right? And because of this very reason, it's impossible to ban it. And the only way is regulation. And because of the heavy dependency on taxes for a large population segment, they need to kind of see how to first bring in taxation schemes to ensure that the existing tax collection does not get affected, and then move on towards integration of cryptos into day-to-day commerce. That's how I see it.
What do you think is the Indian government or the policymakers thinking on the issue? If you have had an opportunity to discuss this project with them, or have any sort of conversation with the government officials or the authority?
I think the regulators should kind of introduce a transaction tax for cryptos, and sort of tax every crypto transaction that happens. And this way, they'd ensure that they get maximum value without affecting the existing ecosystem, and without affecting their own tax targets, tax revenue collection targets. And that's one way to go about. Obviously, I'm a bit of a UBI fan. It's a little bit futuristic, but I think if the government also kind of collects an additional UBI tax and sort of brings UBI, it would cut down a lot of their costs in terms of tax collection, and also help ensure that they're able to promote the government schemes with the tax revenue that's collected. Maybe I'm a bit utopian here, but this is my view on things. If I had a chance to talk to regulators, I'd actually promote them to charge a transaction tax on every cryptocurrency transaction.
But from what I understand, the regulators, especially in India, have a problem when you say cryptocurrency is going to replace the rupee, or it's going to replace the dollar, or it's going to replace the fiat sovereign currency, right? Which the sovereign or the country has the right to, has the right and in fact the sole monopoly to print and regulate currencies. So do you think cryptos should be seen as replacing traditional currency, replacing fiat currency, or more like an asset class where people can measure value? As you said, it can be a measure of value, it can be an asset, or a speculative asset like stocks or gold.
There are two classes of cryptocurrencies. There are more, but at least there are two. One of them is like assets, and the other one is stable coins. So let's differentiate the both first. So assets are like Bitcoin and Ethereum, and they grow in value, they're deflationary. And those are already, the government has a capital gains tax on it. And let's now set that aside for a moment for the discussion. Now, when you talk about cryptos going to replace the local currency, then you're basically talking about stable coins, right? And yes, if a stable coin that is centralized, and let's say there is like USDT, for instance, there's a company printing USDT, and their balance sheet is filled with commercial paper, and such projects. If such cryptocurrencies are circulated within India, for example, or within any jurisdiction in the world, that could be a little, destabilize the local economy a bit, and you'd be right there that they see it as a bad thing. But I think if there are decentralized stable coins, right, the government still needs to run a payment infrastructure. Because let me clarify something that a lot of non-technical people don't understand about the technology of cryptos. Cryptocurrencies don't scale by default. So although you have cryptocurrencies that are decentralized, you still need a little bit centralized system in order to facilitate payments at fast speeds for people. For example, if people in India, they cannot even move to Bitcoin payments without there being, let's say, a centralized payment system. So that is something that people think that crypto means like, it just works as it is. That's not true. You need a centralized payment system like Visa or MasterCard to still process these payments on scale. So the government can still retain their control by policing such payment systems, and they'd be totally fine. So it's just that maybe they've not reached this point of understanding that cryptos cannot work alone without the support of the government, simply because they are infeasible to be used on scale without a centralized payment processing system. And that's why I think the governments will eventually be okay with this technology and kind of integrate it into the economy.
The other concern that the government of India and indeed governments across the world have is that cryptos, it's impossible to trace or track transactions, and that leads to all kind of illicit activities being financed, or illicit money, untaxed money, black money, and so on. How does one address that concern of the government?
Right. So that's another, in my view, that's another misconception, because like I said, crypto is perhaps the single thing that you can trace easily, because all cryptocurrency transactions are immutable. You cannot delete them as long as, and investigations, how it works, they just follow the chain.
Yeah.
So it's easy to connect everything back. It's just that people, like, there's a lot of misconception around this technology. Yes, there's a public key based payment, but as long as this public key has transacted somewhere, you can always establish the chain linkage, and there are actually a couple of firms which do that. There's something called Crystal from Bitfury. They do that. There's another TM, I forgot the name, which is Chainalysis, and there's quite a few firms that do such services, and this is not a problem at all. Like, in fact, tax collection would become very precise. Money laundering would be completely stopped, because you clearly know what is the trail of money, which is difficult to establish in a cash transaction. But in a crypto transaction, it's almost impossible to not know who are all involved in this money trail.
Another thing is there regulators in India and even the common man confuses between the two things. The one is cryptocurrencies and the other is the underlying technology, the blockchain technology. Right. Apart from cryptos, which are a mode of transaction or an asset class, the underlying technology has many use cases across various sectors, or indeed, I feel, across all sectors.
Yeah, that's true.
So how do you think India can harness this blockchain technology, and what are some of the use cases for the government to adopt and embrace blockchain technology?
Right. So you're totally right on your claim that blockchain technology is separate. That's the mother of all.
Yeah.
In fact, one of my mentors is actually the inventor of blockchain technology, Professor Stronetta, and he actually has a very long-term vision about the space, and he published this technology back in 1991. So cryptocurrency is only a use case of blockchain technology, and you're absolutely right there. And about the use cases of blockchain technology, anywhere where you need trust, which is pretty much everything in this world, when there is intelligent life, you need trust. And so I think that blockchain technology itself is like a revolution, maybe a revolution much bigger than the Industrial Revolution, because this is a revolution that opens up global trade and commerce in a much more trustable fashion, because we are in a very specific time of globalization. And at this point, you need trust everywhere. And blockchain really can be used everywhere in clinics, hospitals, in logistics, every business, any place where you need trust. Blockchain can be used to enhance the trust within that environment. So
Got
the
it.
use cases are everything. We could have, let's say, between us, we're talking on a call now. We could have, if we wanted public, if we're two public officials, we could have sort of like an AI note taker that's publishing this hash on a chain, so that tomorrow people know that yes, Jay Seta signed this conversation, so he indeed had this conversation, and this would be like provable in a court of law. So you see, that's just you throw anything here, and you're going to have a use case for blockchain. So yes, I think the use cases, there are already quite a few companies that are building on top of this. Blockchain technology is being widely developed, but the main problem is cryptocurrencies are what governments are worried about, because that removes the technology and their control over the economy. But in my opinion, that's nothing to be worried there, because still the government can maintain control over the payment systems and they'd be fine.
Right. Another thing, is that Indian startups and Indian companies are losing up a lot of investment opportunities and scaling and jobs and so on because of lack of clarity in regulations. As you know, there is no clear law for
Right.
crypto, regulation of crypto. What would be your advice to the lawmakers on seeing the models of regulation in the West of what is a possible framework or a model that the India should look at?
Yeah, I think they're already on the right track. In fact, the finance minister, they've been making a few claims from the ministry. And I think they're on the right track because, see, India is a very big economy. There's a lot of poor people, like I said before, and they can't just make a drastic decision like that. So I think they're already on track. They understand the merits and demerits of this technology. Maybe they're a bit afraid to take a big step. But the existing government, they've been very bold. They thought about demonetization. So bringing about a cryptocurrency revolution is like a cakewalk. So I think they're already doing the right things. There's nothing more to do there. A lot of people have concerns about that. Yes, investor confidence is maybe a bit down because of these regulations, but it's still better than most other nations in the world. And I think they're still doing pretty fine, and we'll get there eventually. They need their time to think about all the welfare schemes, whether all the education schemes can be financed properly, even if they allow such a currency, because it could lead to tax evasion in the early stages, right? But eventually they'll bring all of that into control with better technology. But until that happens, they need to ensure that the transition is smooth. And I think they'll get there. I think in 10 years everybody's going to get there with the
And you are optimistic they will look at a holistic sort of regulation and not look at banning this thing like they did it in the past, like RBI did it.
Even that ban, actually, if you look at it, the more they ban Bitcoin, the higher its price goes. Because the thing is, this technology, you cannot ban it. If you don't ban it, you have some money circulating within your local economy. If you ban it, then all the money just remains in Bitcoins, and liquidity doesn't flow into the local markets. So it's technically impossible to ban these cryptocurrencies. For that, you should maybe bring about a global, FATF style organization. And if they did that, then they would automatically police cryptocurrencies and police the payment processors for cryptocurrencies and the exchanges, rather than try to ban it, right? Because how can someone accept a localized currency as a global currency? It's okay if it's decentralized, and people would be fine. And so I think, yeah, so people are going to kind of allow it soon, because they cannot ban it.
Right. So, final couple of questions. One is you have been involved in gaming as well as in crypto.
Right.
So, how do you see crypto or blockchain-based gaming? Do you have any plans for using crypto for gaming and chain technology-based games? Any thoughts over there?
Yeah, so we don't get into gaming as an industry, but already crypto-based gaming is picking up big time. Like there's Axel Infinity, and then there's a few other MMORPG styles, gaming brands that are coming up in the crypto space. Gaming, I think, would be the biggest industry if crypto payments go mainstream, because ultimately people like to entertain themselves, and the only thing between them entertaining themselves is the local regulatory policies, right? If cryptos go mainstream, then crypto companies automatically come under international, crypto gaming companies automatically come under international jurisdiction. And this would open up the market, and it's very likely that entertainment industry will become one of the biggest industries, because today entertainment, be it casinos, be it clubs, they're highly regulated by the local government. For example, in Karnataka, you cannot go to a club after 11 p.m. in the night, right? And you cannot play certain games. Recently they brought about this ban on skill games, and all of those kind of things will become difficult because they'll need an international jurisdiction for that, right? And this would automatically, boom the gaming space and the general entertainment space, not just gaming, right? Even video content, for example. Recently there were some video platforms that were banned. So even such platforms would end up, recovering their user base, and the user base would be immune to local jurisdiction in that case. So,
Right. But last question, before we let you go, what are your plans with JAX.Network for the next few quarters or in the next few years? What all can we see is in the pipeline? Can we look forward?
okay, so for now, we've launched our MainNet. Now we're launching a bunch of DeFi applications so that people can start using our stablecoins, and people can also start building on top of our ecosystem. Once this is done, then we'll be going for user adoption. So the short term is like rolling out of all the products, which is the next 2 months to 2 quarters. And the long term, it's more about user adoption and brand building. So that's what could be expected from our project.
Great. Best of luck, Vinod, for all the ventures that you'll be launching in the times to come.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. And all the very best. If you like this conversation, do subscribe to our YouTube channel by hitting the bell icon, and do also subscribe to the Crypto Vakil social media pages given in the link description below. Thank you very much, everyone. We'll be back with another episode very soon.
Thank you so much, Jay. And thank you, guys.